My mother-in-law deliberately infected my 1-year-old daughter with chickenpox. I'm furious. I could barely type this because just the thought of what happened makes me shake with anger. My husband, 31, and I decided for the first time since our daughter was born last year to spend Christmas with his family. Since they lived 12 hours away, we decided to arrive a couple of weeks before the holiday so the grandparents could spend time with Annie, our 13-month-old daughter. We got there early as planned, and everything seemed fine. I had already had disagreements with my mother-in-law, Trish, 56, about my parenting style. She criticized me for using disposable diapers, store-bought baby food, and generally not doing everything all natural. But things were going smoothly enough. A day or two after we settled in, my husband and I decided to drive to a mall about an hour away to shop for gifts before the pre-holiday rush. My father-in-law, 63, came along. Trish said she'd be happy to watch Annie. We came back a few hours later, and Annie was sleeping on a blanket I didn't recognize. Trish said one of her friends had dropped it off as a Christmas gift. It looked old and worn, but I figured it was just one of her hippie friends giving a recycled present. The next 2 weeks went fine, except Trish insisted on cooking all Annie's meals from scratch. I mentioned it to my husband, and he told me to just ignore it. Mostly Annie just smeared food with her hands or tossed bowls onto the floor, like she often does now. Trish said she just needed time to get used to natural food. I was getting irritated by her interference, but for the holiday's sake, I kept quiet. The day after Christmas, Annie became very fussy, restless, and cried a lot. I took her temperature. She had a fever. I monitored her over the next couple of days, and thankfully it began to go down. But this morning she broke out in a rash with blisters on her hands and feet. I panicked, packed a bag, and got ready to take her to the doctor. When Trish asked where I was going, I told her Annie had a rash and I was taking her to the doctor. She smirked, looking strangely smug, and said there was nothing to worry about. When I asked what she meant, she didn't even look at Annie and just said it was chickenpox. I asked how on earth she could know that. She calmly admitted that one of her friend's grandchildren had chickenpox a couple of weeks ago, and she had asked them to rub this blanket all over the child's arms, legs, and face, then bring it to her house. I was stunned and asked if this was the same gift blanket Annie had slept on. She said yes. I lost it. Honestly, I don't even remember exactly what I said. I'd barely slept for 2 nights, constantly checking on Annie. I screamed at Trish, "What the hell is wrong with you?" My husband and father-in-law tried to calm everyone down, but Trish dug in and said catching chickenpox was the best and most natural way to strengthen Annie's immune system. We had a vaccination schedule approved by our pediatrician, and the chickenpox shot was planned for 18 months. We took Annie to the doctor, and he confirmed it was chickenpox. He told me to trim her nails short and possibly put socks on her hands at night so she wouldn't scratch herself and scar. On the way back, my husband started defending Trish, saying she meant well. I couldn't believe he was taking her side, and we argued most of the way until I told him to shut up. Annie was scratching like crazy, so I put socks on her hands. When we got back, Trish tried to talk to me, but I told her to get out of my sight. We had planned to stay until Wednesday, but I finished packing to leave in the morning. I'm so angry I can't even think straight. Every time I hear Trish in the kitchen, my heart races and I want to go rip her hair out. I don't ever want to see her again or let her see my daughter. Comment: why wasn't your daughter vaccinated for chickenpox? Me. We follow the schedule set with our pediatrician. A month ago at 1 year, she got her measles shot. The chickenpox vaccine is scheduled for 18 months, as recommended. Another comment: if someone did that to my child, deliberately infected them without my knowledge to undermine me as a parent, they would never see my child again without me present. Another: your husband needs to stop being a mama's boy and start being a father. Update. Thanks to everyone for the comments, messages in private, and advice after my first post. I read everything, and you really helped me, especially with advice about home remedies for itching. Now for the update. I didn't think it could get worse, but it did. I woke up early the next morning and started loading things into the car. I opened it and put the key in my pocket since I was constantly going in and out. Usually we use Jack's key, and mine stays in my bag. While I was gathering things, he sat in the kitchen with his hair freshly cut, drinking coffee and chatting as if nothing had happened. Annie, luckily, was still asleep, so I carefully strapped her into the car seat and closed the door. Then, Jack came out and asked if I had packed everything. I said we were ready to leave as soon as he got ready. He said, "Okay," calmly took out his key, and pressed the central lock, locking us inside. I asked, "What the hell are you doing?" And he said we wouldn't leave until I apologized to Trish. I think I was too shocked, because he used the moment to start again with the same crap as the day before, that Trish thought she was doing. The right thing, that chickenpox doesn't kill, and that I blew everything out of proportion, and now because of me, Trish feels bad. Yes, she feels bad. In my head, I heard all the comments from the previous post, and I told him it was time for him to stop being a mama's boy and start being a father. He made a face and said he would always be Trish's son, and that's the whole point. No one should talk to his mother the way I did yesterday, and I must apologize to ease the tension. I felt like I was in some TV show, like I had married a 9-year-old, not a grown man, so I just told him to open the car so we could leave. He stubbornly refused, then just went back into the house and said he'd come back when I started acting more reasonably. I think you've already guessed what happened next. I had left my bag on the passenger seat, and he probably thought my keys were inside. Ha ha. Nope. I waited about 30 seconds, then just got into the car and drove off. My phone was blowing up with calls. Jack, Trish, father-in-law. Then my mom, dad, and my sister Jez, whom I'm very close to, started calling. I had briefly texted her the day before about what was going on, but when she learned the details, she was shocked. Already on the highway, I asked her to call Jack back and tell him to walk home. I don't care. When she heard my version and not Jack's, since he, it turned out, told her I had gone crazy, scared Trish, kidnapped Annie, and sped away, she calmed down. Mom, Dad, and Jez offered to drive to meet me so I wouldn't have to drive all 12 hours alone with a small child. When I saw them, I just broke down. I burst into tears in the parking lot of some roadside diner, mumbling how much I loved them. They took turns driving while I slept a bit. It was incredibly sobering to talk about everything and hear that it was Trish and Jack who were acting unreasonably. When we got back, I stayed at my parents' overnight, and they said I could stay as long as needed. The next few days were tough. I hardly slept at night, making sure Annie didn't scratch herself, although she still somehow managed to do it. It seemed like she just cried and cried until she was completely exhausted. Now she has 5 scars, on her face and several more on her arms from scratching. I know appearance isn't the most important thing, but I'm furious that her skin is now ruined for life because of some stupid nonsense. I never thought I'd end up in such a situation. I did answer one of Jack's calls once, and he started his rant about not recognizing the person I'd become. I just hung up. He was supposed to return at the end of his vacation, and I wasn't looking forward to it, but I thought maybe we could somehow coexist as long as Trish lived 12 hours away from us. And then, around 11 p.m., I got a very short and formal message from my father-in-law from Jack's phone. Trish had developed shingles. She was in the ER. Jack was staying to take care of her and planned to work from their house remotely after his vacation ended. For several weeks now, Jack has been serving his mommy in everything. I'm sure she's putting on a whole show with phrases like 1 foot in the grave. And from what I Googled, she doesn't have long to live with painful pus-filled blisters. A few weeks ago, I was so tired, depressed, and in shock that I didn't know what to do. But now, when I'm back home with people who really care about me, I'm starting to realize how lucky I am to have spotted this strange dependence of my husband on his mommy so early. The fact that he worries more about Trish than about his own daughter speaks for itself. When he finally comes back, I think we'll have to seriously talk about our future. Comments. He locked his daughter in the car and thought you wouldn't be able to get her out. That's exactly why he did it. To pressure you. Just insane. Good job leaving after that. Whatever happens with your marriage next, it's clear you have the right priorities as a parent. Good luck, and I hope Annie recovers quickly. Yes, exactly. He locked a sick baby in the car. Respect to the OP for handling it calmly. I would have already snapped. That's terrible behavior on his part. Poor child, growing up with such a father. Shingles only happens to those who have had chickenpox. The chickenpox virus stays in the body forever and activates as shingles when the immune system weakens. The chickenpox vaccine protects against this. Ironic, right? I would have already sent him divorce papers before his mommy decides your daughter should join Scientology. Yes. After the last comment, we can clearly see that the mother-in-law's method wasn't great. It would definitely have been better to get the vaccine, not to mention that she scratched up her face. And although the mother says beauty isn't the most important thing, which is understandable, for a girl it is still very important, so I don't know how the heroine can continue living with her husband. Well, that's all. Thank you all for watching, and good luck.